Hey, so my name's Phil Motter. I'm in philosophy of sports, second semester, and I made this project for my final presentation because I wanted to interview different students at BU to see what the general consensus is on different philosophical questions, as well as how sports fits into the lives of the students that I was interviewing, because I think a lot of students at BU have some component of athleticism tied into their lives or daily schedules. So I spoke with two of my friends who are involved with some sort of physical activity on campus. One of those is my friend Sofia Castillo, who is a freshman on the women's rowing team here. And then the other person that I interviewed was my roommate, Nick Casey, who's involved in Army ROTC here and has daily workouts and physical activities to do for the U.S. Army. So these two people that I interviewed both have athletic components of their lives, but they are very different in the demands and also the nature of their exercises and sports. And then lastly, I answered some of the questions myself to just add a further opinion. I'm an intramural athlete at BU. I've played hockey for years. I was involved in ROTC for 2 years. So I just wanted to add my own input on my project, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks. Hey, so could you just introduce yourself for the camera?
I'm Sofia Castillo. I row for BU Women's Rowing. My major is psychology. I'm in the College of Arts and Sciences, and I'm a freshman this year at Boston University.
All right. So first question is, when did you realize you wanted to pursue rowing at the Division I level?
Like my junior year, I really realized it. Junior year is actually when you're supposed to start talking to colleges and filling out recruitment questionnaires. So all of a sudden when people started doing that, I sort of had this like miniature panic attack where I was like, I never really thought about whether I wanted to get recruited or not, or how long I wanted to do this. And then that season, I actually got super into rowing and realized that I couldn't imagine my life without it. So I started talking to colleges and realized that I wanted to go Division I.
Okay. The next question, athleticism can be applied to multiple sports. What is it about your sport that makes it something you strive to compete in and be one of the best at in the nation?
Basically with rowing, it's not really about having a talent that you got from birth. You know, it's just more of tolerating pain, endurance, working through the training plan and just sticking with it, just like the everyday grind. So that really attracted me to the sport because I'm a super competitive person and I can really commit myself to something. So with persistence and determination, you can really be as good as you want to be in rowing.
Okay, thank you. How would you describe the competition of the Division I level? I can go to matches and watch from the stands, but what is going on in your mind when you're in the boat? What are you thinking about, and how do you view your opponent?
It's really frightening, especially at Division I. I mean, in high school, I remember racing, and it was just clear who was the loser and who was the winner. You know, like there were super different, like the talent ranged. It was a super wide range. And once you get to the Division I level, everyone's a competitor. Like everyone's like 6'2" and has been recruited and is just as committed to the sport as you are. So being up at the starting line, seeing girls like that in other boats, it's a different feeling. There's just so much energy there. And I've definitely this year has really ramped up the intensity of the sport for me. I've actually gotten like several overtraining injuries. I've gotten sick a few times just because my immune system can be compromised from the amount of training we do. So it's been an adjustment to have to work through that and realize how much I need to actually take care of my body through that level of training.
So with that being said, what makes it all worth it? It seems like a tremendous time commitment, and why do you choose to lose sleep and adhere to these strict schedules and long drives?
Admittedly, it is hard sometimes to wake up at 5:30 a.m. and know I just have to go and train for 3 hours again and then go to school afterwards. But you know, when you're in your boat with your teammates who know you better than anyone else, and like on a long bus ride with people that are like your family, like there's nothing like that bond between teammates, and it really makes it worth it for me. Also the payoff, like when you finally win a race that you deserve to win after all of the work you've put in, it's really a great feeling to just have that immediate, like, I earned this.
What do you think the Division I lifestyle has done for you? How has it changed your play style, perceptions of yourself, and how you view the sport itself?
It's really structured my life. Like, to be honest, I would feel really weird if I didn't have like a set time that I had to go to practice, a set time that I had to work out, events that I had to attend, and like times to be in classes, times to study. It really like organizes my life nicely. Just like the Division I lifestyle, it really works for me. I feel like I can take that into my life after school.
So, finally, I know that you are currently in season. What changes from the off season during the regular season?
It's kind of different in rowing because we have a fall season, and then our spring, like our fall season, we still compete, we have races, and then our spring season is our intense on season. But between that, we also have winter season, which is like ramping up for the spring season. So it's actually one of our hardest. But really the major change is in the spring, we're traveling every weekend. So in terms of time, like I don't have a Saturday afternoon to study or like a Sunday to go talk to my professors and do my laundry and stuff. So I have to figure out when to fit that on into my regular week. Also, we have 2 practices a day during our on season because the NCAA allows for more hours in the on season. So it can be really physically exhausting. Like by 8 p.m. sometimes I'll be like, I just need to go to sleep. Like I have to figure out another time to do homework because I'm shot.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm going to ask you some philosophical questions that relate to sports and athleticism in general, and just see what your opinion is as a student and also athlete. So, do you think athletes at the professional level are obligated to be role models, and do you think that they should take a political stance on issues of the day as public figures?
I think professional athletes, are definitely obligated to be role models, specifically for younger athletes who are just getting into sports, but also for the larger general public because they have such fame. So to display themselves well in society and show that they're trying to make a good impact on the world while they're here rather than just doing sports. So in terms of like morals and like things like that, to be role models for younger kids and for people who are trying to strive to be the best at what they're doing in life other than athletics. But in terms of politics, I think that politics should be left to like politicians, especially because like athletes are professional athletes, right? They don't really have like a professional opinion in terms of politics. So I think that should be left out of it, and they shouldn't try to sway those who respect them in terms of their sport. And also, like, they don't want to, you know, turn off people who like them as athletes by going against contradicting their opinions in politics. So I really think political opinions should be more of a private thing. You're definitely entitled to your own opinion. You can vote however you want. And I truly believe everyone has a civic duty to improve the world in the way they wish to, especially through voting. But I don't think that they should talk about their political opinions in the news and stuff.
All right, thank you for your opinion. Next, so athletes are constantly striving to be the best that they can at their sport. What do you think of utilizing steroids or other performance-enhancing drugs in order to receive a competitive advantage? Do you think there will ever be a time when this is acceptable?
I think steroids are totally wrong. If it became acceptable for everyone to use steroids, everyone would use steroids. And then everyone would have the same advantage, and it would be a level playing field again. So I think that everyone should just use their natural abilities, and it makes it more entertaining to watch. You know, like when someone is godly at what they do, like unreal, like inhuman, it's really amazing to see. Like if you watch the Olympics, just to see like the track athletes that just can like throw themselves across the track in a sprint. Or the rowers that can like cross the finish line with boat lengths of open water. Like that's amazing. But to have that kind of, like when you find out that someone's been doping afterwards, it kind of destroys your opinion of them because you know that that wasn't their talent and their hard work crossing the finish line. It was drugs. So I really think it's important to keep it a level playing field and as natural as it can be.
Okay. In youth, high school, college, and professional levels of sports, all of them discriminate based on gender. Do you think there should be more inclusion of women in professional sports teams, or do you think co-ed professional teams are a viable option?
I think women's sports are just as important as men's sports. In terms of the wage gap especially, the women's soccer team, the U.S. women's soccer team, has outperformed the men's soccer team by far, and they get paid pennies in comparison. It's brutal to see, actually, because I didn't even realize how bad it was until I looked up the stats. But in terms of co-ed, I don't quite believe that co-ed would be extremely beneficial, just because of the physiological differences between men and women. But in terms of the competitiveness within the sexes, I think that women should be just as are just as qualified as men to compete and to receive the same pay for their competing.
So as your last question, why do you think we have sports?
I think sports are an ancient tradition. Like even in ancient Greece, the Spartans valued sports, and like the Olympics began in ancient Greece, and it was just this like amazing like event between the best physiological competitors from every city-state like competing, and it really like united the ancient world in terms of just coming together and watching like the best that humanity has to offer. And I think even today that has carried through. Like the Olympics still unite us as a globe. Like when you tune in and watch the Olympics, you're like rooting for your country, and you're just watching like Canadians destroyed in something, or like, you know, like like, you know, you're just, it really unites you as a world. And I think to just be tuned in to like different people from different places all doing the same amazing things, like it's definitely a uniting factor, and it brings the human race into something that everyone can really appreciate, and it's entertaining and it's motivating. Like I've read a novel written by like the coach of the fittest man and woman in the world in CrossFit, and he talks about how you can bring the energy of athletics and the work ethic of athletics into your normal life, and just that wanting to strive to be better every day, like 1% improvements on what you're doing every day can be brought into your work life and can be brought into like what you're doing as a student. So just to see that, to see what other humans have to offer, and getting out of your own little bubble, it's a cool thing, and I think that's why athletics have just remained a part of our society for millennia.
All right, thank you, Sophia. Okay, so go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Nicholas Casey. I'm a sophomore at BU. I study international relations, and my track is foreign policy and security studies, with a minor track in European studies.
Okay, and you're also my roommate.
I am Phil's roommate.
You're not being forced to do this. So, do you play any sports at BU or do anything like athletic?
I do not play any sports at BU. I am part of ROTC though. So it's another pretty lengthy commitment, 3 to 4 days a week, PT in class.
Can you explain what PT is?
PT, physical training, so working out, getting ready for the Army fitness test that we have once a semester. We have a record fitness test, and it gets counted for our official merit list, which is what we go based off of, like a national waiting list for when we commission as lieutenants when we graduate.
So there's a lot of competition to be on top of your physical.
There is competition, but it's healthy competition. I mean, it's definitely not a competition where you want others to fail. Obviously, it's kind of the opposite. You all want to succeed, but it's more of a friendly competition with everyone wanting to do their best, especially with like PT and grades and all that, and leadership.
Okay. So you're from Massachusetts, and what sports have you played growing up in Mass?
So I'm from Somerset, Massachusetts, which is right near Providence. I grew up playing soccer, baseball. I did track in high school, and I did wrestling for about 2 years too. So,
Do you know why you played these sports, or what drew you to them?
well, I started playing when I was around 3 or 4, so I was kind of too young to really actually know why I started playing these sports. But I started playing them when I was that young, and it kind of just stuck throughout the rest of my life. And as I got older, I tried out new things like track and wrestling. I only did those for a few years, so it wasn't really like one of my more favorite sports. It was mostly baseball and soccer.
And what do you think it is about soccer that made it something that you pursued for a few years in high school?
So with soccer, I found it as very the competition was kind of a good adrenaline rush, and that's why I liked it so much. I wound up playing 4 years in varsity for my high school soccer team, and I was the team captain, and it was just something I was really into. And I played it year round, like I said, since I was like, I don't know, 7 or 8 is when I started playing year round, not just in the fall. And it just kind of stuck, so.
Okay. So we got some background on you as an athlete. You're still doing a lot of exercise through
Oh, yeah.
ROTC,
Yeah.
early wake-ups.
Mhm.
You know, the Division I athlete I interviewed talked about how she had early wake-ups and how that can be so
Oh, yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
And, now I'm just gonna open this up to some more philosophical questions. So the first one is, do you think athletes at the professional level are obligated to be role models? And as a follow-up on that, do you think that they should take a political stance on issues of the day as public figures?
I definitely think professional athletes should have the role as role models, especially for people that continue playing sports throughout school. I mean, I stopped playing sports in my senior year of high school, and you have plenty of people that play through college, and they need people to look up to, especially when it comes to pretty much staying motivated to keep playing the sport. When it comes to the political stances, that can be kind of a gray area because, in my opinion, expressing political opinion publicly can be kind of unprofessional when it comes to you having people to look up to, because you don't want that political opinion to really persuade anyone to go to a certain side. I think there are ways to express your political opinion. It's just important to make sure that it's not too radical to one side, and it's good to always see other people's sides from if there's like a political argument or something, to make sure that you're rational and don't have a biased opinion on something.
Okay. So next, athletes are constantly striving to be the best that they can be at their sport. What do you think of utilizing steroids or other performance-enhancing drugs in order to receive a competitive advantage? Do you think there will ever be a time when this is acceptable?
I don't think there'll ever be a time. I think players that use them in their sport, especially at the professional level, gives them an unfair advantage. And I really think that it should be punished pretty severely if a player's caught using like steroids for something, because they're pretty much injecting themselves with this steroid that makes them almost dangerously strong when it comes to like football, baseball, and there are cases of like baseball players who haven't been inducted into the Hall of Fame because they've been using steroids, and the reason why they were chosen to be in the Hall of Fame, or there's talks of them being in the Hall of Fame, is because they were so good, and it was the time period when they were on steroids. So I think that if there's a player that's on a drug like a steroid to make them better and give them an advantage, ultimately shouldn't be allowed to play the sport, because it's almost not fair to the other players.
Okay. Next is youth, high school, college, and professional levels of sports all discriminate based on gender. Do you think that there should be more inclusion of women in professional sports teams, or do you think that co-ed professional teams are a viable option?
So I think the way that we do it now with men and women's team, I think that's the best way to do it. Because, for instance, there are, if you were to do co-ed football teams or, I don't know, any other physical sport, it can almost be kind of dangerous for women or for females to be in that sport. Because men are just really, if you look at an NFL football player, they're literally like, I don't know, they're very muscular guys, and I think that separating male and female based off of their athletic abilities is probably the best way to go, to leave it at that.
All right. Cheaters never win and winners never cheat. Is this true? Can you cheat and still win? And do you think that cheating has any place within sports?
So I definitely think cheaters can win. Case with the steroids, I mean, I guess it's a way you can win if you get away with it, but morally it's not an actual way that you should be able to win, and it's not right if you're cheating and winning. And I think personally, if I were to win at an event or something or a game, and I knew I cheated, like to the point where if I hadn't cheated but would have lost the game, I think that it would definitely hit me afterwards that, all right, what I did probably wasn't right, and because I cheated, I won the game or I won the event, and it'd probably haunt me for a while if I knew that, but that's just my opinion.
All right. So as the last question in the interview, I've been asking just why do you think we have sports, like the institution of sports? Why do you think that exists?
So sports are very important. I think not only sports, but just activities that involve teamwork and getting involved in things. Because one thing I did notice with sports and ROTC is if you're not involved in them, then you're probably not going to get a lot out of them. I mean, sure, you can go to practice or physical training or class, but if you're not involved in it, then you're ultimately not going to get anything out of it. So I think that's a huge factor, and one thing I've noticed over playing sports for almost 17 years. Just teamwork as well helps you build camaraderie with your teammates, make new friends, some pretty serious friends. I still talk to some of the guys that were on my soccer team when I was 7 or 8, so that's really big. They're some of my good friends, and same thing with ROTC. If I see people around campus, it gives me someone to say hi to, someone to sit with at breakfast or lunch. So I think that's really important with that, the teamwork and the camaraderie. It helps you make friends and get involved with other things other than if you're a student going to school, going to class, and studying and all that. So,
all right. Thank you for answering some questions today.
Thank you for having me.
So I've interviewed this Division I athlete and also my roommate who's involved in ROTC here, so he keeps that level of athleticism in his life. But for these questions I've asked them, I've also had answers to them myself. Currently, I'm a sophomore at Boston University studying psychology and philosophy, and I've played hockey since I was about 5 years old at all different levels of competition up until I was a senior in high school and playing Division I hockey. And I played Division III club last year at Gettysburg, and this year when I transferred to BU, I decided to join a cadet intramural team because I was involved in ROTC as well at BU. And I play the sport because it's fun. I get physical enjoyment from playing the sport, as well as fulfillment within the sport that, it's something that I've had since I was a kid, and being able to play hockey keeps me kind of in touch with my childhood, even though you keep getting older. So as far as the philosophical questions pertaining to this interview that I asked the people, if athletes at the professional level are obligated to be role models, as well as do you think that they should take a political stance on issues of the day as public figures? I think that my answer to that question would be that athletes at the professional level are obligated to be role models. They're on television. A lot of children look up to them and will have their jerseys and will follow their careers, and even sometimes start playing the sport because of an athlete. I personally started playing defense in hockey because one of my favorite hockey players, Duncan Keith, is a defenseman who I've met a few times. Great guy. And as far as taking a stance on political issues of the day, I think as public figures, of course politics is a touchy subject, but they are citizens, they do have votes, and they're just working professionals. So why should someone who's working a job as, I don't know, an accountant, feel afraid to air their political opinions? They're a professional. An athlete's a professional. Of course, their platform has a much further reach than your average accountant in this metaphor, but I still think that it's important for these athletes to voice their concern for politics, and also to be, as far as being a role model goes, standing up for injustices. The next question that I asked Sofia and Nick were, athletes are constantly striving to be the best they can with their sport, with steroids and whatnot. So with steroids, I think there's no place in sports for steroids, because I believe Sofia's answer was, if everyone takes steroids, then the competition will be level, so what's the point? And that was a very good point, in that if you're taking steroids, you're giving yourself an unfair advantage, and everyone should have that. Otherwise, you're not really competing, because you automatically have the advantage. And as far as if they will ever be used and accepted within sports, I just don't see that happening, unless it's purely for human achievement, to see, okay, this person can run a 4-minute mile, let's put them on steroids and see how fast they can go. That kind of thing for scientific experiments, that might be acceptable someday, but for now, within the MLB, NFL, NHL, NBA, there should be no place for steroids or any kind of performance-enhancing drugs. My stance on gender discrimination within sports is that for now, keeping men and women in separate leagues is healthy for the leagues due to physiological differences between the two sexes. And I think sports is one of the only exceptions to this trend of bringing together men and women into a single team, because I don't think that co-ed professional teams would be a viable option, because people like watching the highest level of competition for either men or for women. So that's my stance on that. And I had Nick answer the cheaters never win, winners never cheat question, and I agree with him. Cheaters can win. There's ways to advance yourself within society through nefarious methods that is technically cheating or morally wrong, but as long as you reach your end goals of what you wanted, you're winning. So within the eyes of the cheater, you can win. But I think anyone else watching from the sidelines who watches that cheater will judge them, and you ultimately lose morally. And then lastly, the big question, the big why question for sports and philosophy. Why do you think we have sports? I think we have sports because they are something that takes our mind off of whatever's happening in our life. You can go out there, work hard, exercise, get endorphins, and kind of zone out while you're playing your sport. And it also fosters healthy competition within yourself and within your teammates and your opponents. And lastly, I think sports just as an institution teaches a lot of valuable lessons from a young age of teamwork, hard work, and discipline that can be applied to jobs, life, and ultimately your completion of being a human. So yeah, that was just my stance on all the questions that I asked them. Thanks.